So I'm
Sure.
called Caspar Acker. I'm with the Wildlife Conservation Society. I work on our regional program for Sudan Hill as coordinator for safeguards and community relations based in Kigali. So the free, prior, and informed consent is usually applied in situations where certain groups give up their right to natural resources that they used to have rights over. So, for example, in creation of a new park, of a new protected areas, it would require a free, prior, and informed consent because it put restrictions on what people are allowed to do and not allowed to do in that area. Like, say, if it used to be a hunting zone or public land, maybe you had rights to go and collect firewood, or you had right to graze in the area. If a protected area is created, depending on the classification, but if it's a strict classification 1 or 2, where local populations are not allowed to enter, then that means now you limit their right to natural resources, and that now requires that you have a very well laid out process that ensures that there's a fairness in that they actually give their consent to the creation of that protected areas. When there's an issue of creating a new protected area or creating a community-based conservation area, anything that sort of restricts people's access to natural resources, usually it requires a process of free, prior, and informed consent, which can take a long time. It can take several years in some cases. Also, some countries have legislation that actually describes the procedure for how to conduct these sorts of processes, because usually they can have big consequences for the people that live in a certain area if area that was before access for all becomes a national park, especially if it's a national park where populations don't have entry. It's a big change. So you need to make sure that all different parties in a certain area has agreed to that change, right? Some communities see this as a way of protecting their land, because it can be a way of protecting the land for future generations, be a way to protect the wildlife in the area. Some areas you also have a park that then starts to create some income, some revenue that might be transferred back to the community. So there can be a lot of incentives in that sense to create a protected area. It all depends on what's in the legislation, right? What's in the management plan for that protected area. But there are several cases of where you have indigenous people that are from that area. It is their land. They live there. They own it legally. And then they will have the right to even live inside a protected area. They will have the right maybe to go and hunt in certain sections or certain times of the year. They can also have rights. It's not only mammals, but also to fishing, right? Fishing rights in certain parts of rivers, certain part of the year. They can have right to certain sacred places where they can go and perform rituals. It starts with a co-design process, a consultation process, where you lay down the steps and the modalities for that decision-making process. Actually, one of the things you have to discuss with the stakeholders that are implicated is, how are we making this decision? Is it by a vote? Is it by a majority? Is it by a simple majority? Is it by 80% majority? Is it by consensus? Are there certain populations which could be indigenous, or it could be women, youth, elders? Do they have more to say than others? Anything is basically open, but it needs to be co-designed with the population that is impacted, that used to have access to these resources that will no longer have impact, what kind of decision-making process would they like? That's one key part of a FPEC process. It's not just an all or nothing process, but as you go along, there can be, you keep asking the community, so are you happy with the steps so far? Are there anything you would change? You allow people to go back and return back in the process and then continue and rectify things. And always when you have an FPEC process, there should always be the opportunity to say no at all stages of the process. So even when you come to the last minute, there should still be the opportunity to say no. You would create a committee or something that would have oversight and be responsible for the process, which could include community representative, government representatives, and if you have donors or an operator like WCS involved, we could also be part of that committee, providing some of the technical expertise. But again, it's important that it's an independent process,